All right, let's talk research. If you've ever been around an academic project or a big study, you've probably heard the words methodology and methods thrown around, sometimes like they mean the exact same thing. But here's the thing, they don't. Not at all. And honestly, knowing the difference is the secret to doing great research. So today, we are going to clear up all that confusion once and for all.
So, how are we going to do this? Well, let's make it simple. I want you to think about any research study like you're building a house. Seriously, you wouldn't just show up to an empty lot with a pile of wood and a hammer and just start, right? Of course not. You'd need a plan, a really solid one. So, let's explore what that plan actually looks like.
Before we even get to the blueprints or the toolboxes, we have to start at the very beginning. We need to pour the foundation for our entire project. And that means asking the most basic question. Why are we even building this house in the first place? And that question, that why, brings us right to the core of what research really is.
When you strip it all down, research is just a structured, organized way of figuring things out. That's it. It's about asking a really good question and then following a logical, step-by-step process to find the answer. In our house analogy, this is you deciding, okay, I need a house that has 3 bedrooms, gets a ton of natural light, and is super energy efficient. That purpose, that goal, is what drives the whole project from start to finish.
Okay, so we know why we're building. We've got our foundation. Now comes the big question, how do we actually build this thing? And this is where those two critical and often confused ideas come into play. It's time to talk about the architect's blueprint versus the builder's toolbox.
Your methodology. That's the big picture. It's the master plan. It is the architect's blueprint for the entire house. It doesn't just say what you're going to do, it explains why you're doing it that way. It answers questions like, why did we choose a modern design instead of a traditional one? Why are these specific walls the ones that have to be load-bearing? The methodology is all of the strategic thinking and the core principles that justify every single choice you're about to make.
So, if the methodology is that grand blueprint, then the methods are the actual tools in your toolbox. You got your hammers, your saws, your drills. And here's the key. The blueprint, your methodology, tells you exactly which tool to grab for which job. It says, for this part, you need a nail gun, not a screwdriver. In research, these tools are the specific, practical actions you take, things like running an experiment, conducting an interview, or sending out a survey. They're how you actually build what the blueprint designed.
And here you can see it laid out side by side. It couldn't be clearer, right? Methodology is the blueprint, the big picture why. Methods are the toolbox, the hands-on how. Your methodology justifies the entire approach, and your methods are the tools you use to get it done. The most important thing to remember is that the blueprint always determines which tools you're going to use.
Okay, we have our blueprint, we have our toolbox ready to go. Now let's head over to the construction site and see how this all comes together to build a real research study, step by step.
Just like building any house, research follows a pretty logical order. First, you got to lay the groundwork. That means defining your question and seeing what other people have already built. Then you create the plan. This is where you choose your specific methods. After that comes the actual construction. You go out and collect your data. And finally, you have the final inspection, where you analyze what you've built, draw your conclusions, and show everyone the finished house.
Now, think about it. Not all houses look the same, do they? You've got cozy little bungalows, you've got giant skyscrapers, you've got rustic cabins in the woods. Well, research is the exact same way. It comes in all sorts of different designs, and each one is built for a very different purpose.
For instance, applied research is kind of like an architect designing affordable housing to solve a real-world community problem. Descriptive research? That's like taking a survey of a neighborhood to get a snapshot of who lives there. And something like historical research is like an engineer studying ancient Roman blueprints to figure out how on earth they built those incredible aqueducts. Every single type of research requires its own unique blueprint and a very specific set of tools.
So, we've gone through the whole process. We designed it, we built it, and our research house is finally finished. What's the big deal? What was the payoff? Why does it matter so much that we used a solid blueprint and the right tools? Let's take a look at the value of a job well done.
First, and this is the big one, good research pushes all of us forward. Every single well-conducted study is like laying another brick in the great wall of human knowledge. It expands what we know about the world, piece by piece.
And you know, it's not just about what we discover for everyone else. The act of doing rigorous research actually sharpens our own minds. When you have to craft that blueprint, when you have to carefully choose your tools and justify every decision, It trains you to think more logically, more critically, and more scientifically. It just makes you a better thinker.
Ultimately, a strong methodology is what gives your research its strength and its integrity. It leads to findings that are accurate, reliable, and thorough. It's really the difference between building a house that's going to stand for 100 years and one that's going to fall down in the first strong gust of wind.
You know, this quote right here just nails it. It really sums up the whole thing. Methodology is the golden thread that ties everything together. It connects the big ideas, the practical tools, and the actual work into one solid, cohesive, and powerful structure.
So there you have it. You've got the blueprint and you've got the toolbox. You now know that to build anything that's meaningful, anything that's going to last, you need a plan, a methodology that justifies every single move you make. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build?